Well, everybody, welcome back. Something a little different today. A little different from my usual routine. I just wrapped up South of Midnight a few moments ago, and after sitting down and letting the story marinate on my mind for a few minutes, I feel like I am ready to go ahead and give it a short review. Now, South of Midnight is a pretty basic action-adventure game with a little bit of light RPG mechanics thrown in. It is set in the Louisiana Bayou, modern times, give or take, and it is a modern take on folklore from the area. I assume. I don't know the details behind it. It could all be made up entirely, but either way, it's pretty interesting the way they do it. Pretty freaking interesting. Now, the combat is probably the weakest part of the game, and that's a little bit unfortunate, but, it happens sometimes. The deal with it is that it all takes place in combat arenas, essentially, with waves of enemies coming in. Your abilities are hotkeyed with cooldown timers. Your dodge move has a couple of invincibility frames, and your weapons are pretty standard hack and slash swing and go. It's serviceable. It gets the job done, but it's nothing. It's nothing exceptional. It's nothing exciting. It's nothing mind-blowing. It reminds me of Prototype from that infamous clone from or maybe Infamous was the Prototype clone, it's hard to say, from the 360 PS3 era. Nothing to get excited about, but it is serviceable, it is fun. There were times that it took me out of it because of the jank, but I also played mouse and keyboard, and I was told that it was very much optimized for a controller, so that might be part of the problem I had with the combat. Now, the exploration and traversal is handled much, much better. Your dodge move from combat turns into kind of a torpedo dive that can turn into a long glide. You also have a double jump, and you also have a grapple mechanic that you can use. There's another less used mechanic that is your little summonable cloth monster buddy named Crouton. He can get into small spaces and activate things that you can't. It is rather minimally used, but it is there. Nothing breaks the mold. There is some pretty fun wall running that I struggled with the directional aspects of, and there is a fair amount of verticality. There's also one cool thing about this game is that if you choose not to explore, you're not really missing anything except some power-ups and some little side bits of story. So you don't feel like you have to scour the map to find every collectible. What's there for you to find is there for you to find, and it enriches the experience, but not finding it doesn't seem to take anything away from the experience. Those obscure bits of lore were very cool for me to find. I'm sure I missed some, but what I did find was super cool. One thing that I thought was amusing was the experience points or AP or whatever you would use from other games to skill up your character is called floof. So that was something funny. Little glowing white balls of stuff that you could run around and collect called floof. Where South of Midnight really, really shines, though, is the story. And I don't just mean the story that was told, I mean how it's told. I mentioned at the beginning that it is based on Bayou folklore and Bayou magic, and it's very, very cool. The main character's class is Weaver, and essentially she is able to manipulate the tapestry of a reality. Similar to the way I see the magic users in The Wheel of Time, if I'm being honest. Now, I'm a fan of that show and book series, so that might be how I see that connection, but one thing that the game does extraordinarily well with its graphics and explaining its story is the stop-motion qualities that its cutscenes have. There's a little bit of a Tim Burton effect, and it is incredible. You notice it in the introduction, you notice it in all of the cutscenes, and you notice it pretty much throughout the game. There are aspects of the actual gameplay itself where the stop-motion effects come into play, and that is really, really cool. One thing else, the acting is incredibly solid throughout. Every single character sells the character that they're playing. Like, there is no doubt that these characters are who they are authentic, they feel real, they feel like they have purpose and meaning and feelings and despair and everything. Like, it is extraordinarily well done. One other thing that I have to mention is the score, and in particular the lyrics. The score itself is incredible throughout. It fits the mood, it amps you up when it needs to amp you up, it makes you tense when you need to feel tense. But one really neat thing is, as you get to each of the, I don't want to say boss areas because it's handled a little differently. There are a couple of boss fights and then there are other areas that are more puzzly. But as you get to each of these areas and conclude each of these arcs of the story, the lyrics kick in. And the lyrics are profound in some ways. Paying attention to the lyrics and then tying in some of the collectibles that you find really, really paints a pretty impressive, grim picture of some of these stories. So, South of Midnight ultimately is a story about grief and regret and sorrow. And under all of it, understanding and healing. If you can't handle a touch of gameplay jank, I can't recommend this game. If you can handle a touch, and I mean a touch, of jank, I can't recommend this game enough. This game hit me emotionally in ways that games rarely do. The moments that frustrated me were followed by moments of exultation as I figured out what I did wrong or managed to get past the troubling moment. So that's actually a good thing, even though they were frustrating at moments. And overall, it was just an incredible experience. So yeah, South of Midnight. Shocker. Game of the Year potential for me. 8 out of 10 game. 10 out of 10 experience. Like I said, if you can handle a little bit of jank, you've got to try this out. Thanks for coming. Like and sub if you're into this sort of thing.